Again, this is Scott Kwiatkowski, and if you've got questions, please use your question box, and I will get to them as quickly as possible, since I'm kind of running it solo today. And if it's prevalent to where we are, I'll answer it immediately, and we'll get everything answered for everybody. So part of the agenda today is we're going to show you how to design a system using UPStart and the different pins that we have available. We'll go over the UPStart software overview of the programming. We're going to create a network. We will intro you to our new, what we call as our systems designer, which is a quick and easy way to set up a system. In the way that I kind of look at different things, I like doing things in 3 steps. So part of the designer comes back from the installation and how we go about doing different things. We're going to add devices both online and offline, so live and or as if we were in on a job site. We're going to actually configure the devices. We'll create a couple of different scenes or links, as we call them, and we'll actually program those and set them down into it. And if we do have time within this hour, we'll get into how to certify a system. If not, we'll be covering that in the next webinar. So parts of designing a PulseWorx system is, what do you want to control? Then you have to kind of figure out what kind of devices, like wall switches, lamp modules. Is it going to be a relay switch? Is it an LED? And we actually have a variety of little worksheets available for you folks that you can use walking a job. And this is what I call as our design layout sheet. What room is it going to be in? What's the fixture name going to be? What color is it going to be? How many fixtures are actually being controlled by the switch? What's the wattage? And what's the type? And with doing this, you'll be able to figure out what all of the pieces and parts are going to be. Then how do you want to control them? So you kind of got to think, do I want to use a keypad? Do I want to use my iPhone? Do I want to interface into a front-end system? Do I want to take contact closure inputs? And we can kind of figure out what the interfaces and keypads or controllers are going to be. And we've also got worksheets on the keypad, so when you're working with your client, okay, Mrs. Jones, the 6-button keypad is going to be at the front door. What do you want these buttons to do? And we can figure out what the mode is. Is it going to be a key press of an activate or a deactivate or an on button, or is it going to be a toggle? And when you fill these things out, this will actually give you all of the programming needs that you're going to need, which you could actually do prior to actually showing back up on the job site for trim out. And then the third part is, what are the results? What are the scenes going to be? And how are we going to associate those to the keypads or the functions that are going to happen from an input device or a timed event or something along that nature? So those are the 3 questions you really want to ask yourself when you're designing a system, because once you get those answered, you kind of got all your programming done. And then the last step is to actually certify your system, which has to do with verifying that the scenes are all doing exactly what you wanted them to do, and that the LEDs track. And that's probably the most confusing part of all of this as we go along. But one thing that I think that really enables PulseWorx, PCS, and the UPB technology to stand out above the other technologies that are out there is we can actually certify our system with communication tests. Basically meaning how well is this keypad is talking to one device or 100 devices. How well is this piece talking to every one of the devices it's supposed to be talking to, and document it and print it out. And actually we can create a sign-off sheet for you for the client to sign off on. That being said, the rules to success. We recommend a phase coupler on every electrical panel that is in your house, and this goes phase to phase. That enables the signal to cross over. It's Ohm's law. A signal going down copper, as we all know, in any kind of situation, that signal gets smaller. If you have a large house, if it's over 5,000 square feet, we recommend a repeater. Not that you're going to need it, but we recommend it in the design process. This will actually pick the signal up and rebroadcast it onto all phases. And if you are in an apartment complex or on a 3-phase doing light commercial, you must have a 3-phase repeater to make sure the signal gets on all of the phases within the home. And last is you want to have a signal strength of 13 Leicesters or higher. And what's a Leicester? Well, that's our unit of measurement. And sooner or later, he's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and take over what's going on the job site. So let's talk a little bit about UPStart. Little introduction here. And really, it's your tool. It enables you to program all of our devices, any UPB device for that matter. And with that, it's a Windows-based item. Sorry, the Apple folks. It is Windows-based, and we do not have any plans of making it a Mac-based. But you can run it on a Mac if you're using an emulator. So that being said, we can set everything up, what goes on within UPStart. And it allows your computer to talk to through a Powerline Interface module to all of the devices. So the latest software is always available on our website, PCSlighting.com. You do have to have an account set up. It's just an email and a contact information to download it, but it's always free. Now, the Powerline Interface modules that you're going to use, we have an RS-232 version, which basically has a DB9. We have a USB version, and we now have the Ethernet version. It's an RJ45 on the bottom. You take that, you plug it into your router, and you plug the PIM into an outlet. So this PIM IP here has got a cable that is running to my router in the closet. So you're going to need a PIM to do programming. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the terms that we use and kind of the layout of things. UPStart is the software. The design pane, which basically gives you a Windows kind of looking output on the left-hand side. It'll show rooms, devices within rooms. It'll show your scenes as you build them out. The right-hand frame is really the display pane or whatever we're displaying or working with. It might just show the devices. If you're in working with a link, it'll show up there. But that's actually kind of your display pane. Now, your configuration file is actually the file that you're creating. And the neat thing about it is you can save this file, you can use it later, and actually, once all the devices are programmed, if you lose your file, you can actually pull all this information up and out of the devices because everything is actually retained in the devices. Because we're really peer-to-peer, we don't have a central brain within a PulseWorx system. So, some of the takeaways we're going to do is how to create the network, how to add the devices a couple of different ways. Some of the programming options that we can set up in a wall switch, the keypad, and the lamp modules. We're going to set up a basic links, how to save your file, and how to certify your system again. So let's kind of understand a little bit more about the layout. Across the top, you will actually have the name of the file that you're using. So in the blue line, if I've named this Network 1 or the Jones or the Smiths, that'll show you what file you're working with. We've got a variety of different menus, drop-downs. I'm a keystroke type person, so I want to save time because time is money. So we can always use our Alt tab and do drop-downs, or you can use the toolbar, which actually gives us icon capability of looking at different things as well. That being said, across the bottom, we have a little bit more of a status bar, which will show us if there's signal being sent, if there is any kind of noise on the power line, if we're connected to the PIM, if we're online, if we're connected or offline, where we can do any kind of programming we want without being connected to the PIM, and if anything has actually been modified within this file or not. And within the design pane, we'll get these different folders of displays where I could show all my devices, just devices that are outside or upstairs or downstairs, or rooms, and the links. And we'll get another schedule if we add a TEC or a timed event controller for what some of our schedules are actually going to be. And on the right side, we end up showing the devices and/or our visual link editor or our link builder. So let me kind of jump live to UPStart. when I start up UPStart, it's going to actually ask me, trying to start my Powerline Interface. I really don't want to do that right now, but all right, so I'm not connected. Now, when I start UPStart, it usually asks me, I kind of started this already, if I want to use it on my own or open up an existing file. So one of the first things we really need to do is choose if we're going to connect to the PIM or not. Now, we've changed a little bit in UPStart. So under Tools, we will go to Powerline Interface, and here we need to pick what type of an interface we're going to use. Are we going to use an RS-232 PIM? Are we going to use a USB PIM? Or are we going to use a PIM IP? For today, I'm going to show you how we can set up with the PIM IP. Now, if I'm on a job site and I plug this PIM in, I really don't know what the IP address is. So we have this little discovery that will go out and actually find the network ID of the device because it's in DHCP mode. Now, I can actually go into my configuration settings of the device. Normally, this upper button would have been checked. But we've set up this IP address of 192.168.1.5. You know, you put in your subnet mask and your default gateway, and you can say save, and that'll go and then reboot the device and set it to that IP address within your network. So we know now that it's 192.168.1.5. So I can come back in here and punch in .5. The port that we always talk through is 2101, and at this point I want to connect to my PIM. It goes out, it'll show me that it's a firmware version on the unit, it is a PCS PIM, and that it's operational. So at this point I could literally walk around the house because I'm on the Wi-Fi within the property and not be tethered to the wall with a PIM. Now, the other advantage to the PIM IP is that if I open up this port, 2101, I can actually access the home remotely. And instead of by putting it in the IP address, I would put it in by name. You know, so I have one called beachautomation.dyn.dns.org, and that does my port forwarding for me, so I can access that device from, I can access my house outside of what's going on. So that's a nice tool. The PIM is a little more, and now I got to connect again. The PIM IP is a little more expensive than the standard PIM, but it's well worth it. So with that being said, you know, we now have a basically UPStart that is blank and virgin. We have not created a new file. It's showing displays and devices, which we don't have anything yet. So one of the things, I just want to keep myself on pace here, pick the IPs, and those of you that are authorized dealers for us, this PowerPoint presentation is available under once you log in to give you the capability of kind of taking a look at this later on. Now, a couple of different things that we can do is we can very quickly look at what kind of noise or signal is being sent on a job site under Tools. So we go to our signal and noise meters. And as the samples climb, we're actually reading the cycles that are going on within the home. So right now I have no noise, and I'm not seeing any signal because the signal is not being sent. But if I transmit from my keypads, all of a sudden we're seeing a signal strength of 30, and we have no noise here in this job site. So that's fantastic. So that's a nice little piece to be able to look at things. The next part is literally creating the network. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can create a network. And I'm going to kind of go a little bit off script here. We have the capability of, under File, we can say create a new network file. That will then say label the network name, the network ID, and the password. And then I can just start going in and adding devices and things along that nature. I could also say open an existing network file, okay, where I can come in and pick out any one of the files that I've built in the past. I can also, if I don't have the file and I've taken over a job or something like that, I can actually create a new file from the network, meaning I go out and put one of the devices in setup, and then I can go and pull all of the information up and out of every single device. The only thing that I'm not going to get is the name of the scene. It'll have a scene number or a link number, but I won't get the hello, goodbye, how are you, what's going on, you know, whatever the name of the scene is. But what we're going to show you here today is our PulseWorx Systems Designer. And this, to me, really kind of helps you, if we follow the, you know, rules of using the forms and things along that nature, so we can put in, you know, the name of the client, put in an address if you so choose, put in a phone number and email, you know, you can put in your company name, you know, contact information. But here you can actually name the network, so we'll call this the Jones. And it took a network ID between 1 and 250, so, you know, we'll use 50. And password. Now, one of the things I do recommend is that you erase the existing configuration of the devices as they're added. What always happens is a lot of people will sometimes do this, or they'll start to modify the first 6 scenes within the system. But if you don't erase the existing configuration, you add a new device, all of a sudden that device is being added to those 6 scenes. And all of a sudden people are saying, why are these lights blinking for me? Well, they're part of scene 8. No, they're not. Yes, they are. And scene 8 is blink. So, you know, please erase the configuration. Also, we can set the default fade rate of the dimmers, so they become standardized across the board. You know, I like 3.3 seconds. And what we can do now is add the names of the rooms in your design. So being that I've got, you know, 3 rooms here, the living room, I've got outside, and I've also got the kitchen. So you can go and list all the rooms that are going to have devices in them. Nice long list. Now within the living room, what am I going to be controlling? Well, this switch is, we'll call it the cans. And what product type is it? And in here we list the top items that are being used under PulseWorx. So, you know, I can pick what it's going to be. This is a wall switch dimmer, WS1D. I can also put in, let's say, the keypad, the living room keypad. Now to save time, because, you know, I like keystroke, I can hit K and it jumps me to the keypad 6. I can hit it again or go to keypad 7, or the 8, or the KPLD, and it rolls through those keypads. So that's a very quick way to add devices to your rooms. Outside, I've got the landscape, and that we know is a wall switch, WS1D. And next, I will go to the kitchen, and I've got the keypad, and it's KPC7. And we also have the island, and that's a wall switch. So all of a sudden, we've very quickly added all of these devices to our file. The next part is to name out all of the scenes that you're ever going to be transmitting within your system. So I'm going to have, you know, obviously I'm going to turn the living room cans, living room lights. I'm going to be able to turn on the landscape. And I'm going to turn on the island. Now, I call the scenes or the links, there's 3 types. You have a zone, which is controlling the device specifically, like I've done here. I could do, you know, home. I could do away, which could be more global. Or I could have, you know, watch TV, which is more of an area, or dining, you know, for breakfast. And I can list out every single scene that I'm ever going to transmit, you know, or that I'm assigning, you know. And I can just list these, and I can roll this down to 250 different scenes. Now, once I've gotten that done, it's coming back and saying, hey, here is the keypad in the living room. What do you want this on button to do in the living room? Well, why not we have that one say home? And then we can choose what the mode of that button is going to be. And we've got a variety of different modes or how these work, the top being the most prevalent being at the top of the list. So I can activate, or I can deactivate a scene, or I can create a toggle button that activates and deactivates it, or turns it on or turns it off, if you will. But the nice thing about our it's not just on or off, because when I activate a scene, I can actually have a device turn on to 0%. So watching TV, I might have lights dimmed down to 10%, and other ones are actually being turned off. We've also got on and off buttons, bright buttons, dim buttons, a variety of different features and functions here, but keep it simple in the beginning and really use the top three. So we're going to activate that scene. What do I want the A button to do? Well, I might just have that do the living room lights, and I might make that a toggle button. Now, I can use my mouse and drop down, or I can actually start to use my tab button. So B, I might say, watch TV, and I just hit W to jump to the watch TV scene. And while I'm on the button here, I might want to have that be a toggle, or it might be an activate scene. So I can pick my modes very quickly and just use my tab. I don't want to have it away, but I might want to have, not done. Let's do the landscape lights there. And that I probably want to do as a toggle. D I'm going to have as done, which for me is going to activate everything. Off, I'm going to have it be away. And that's going to be activated. Now, the up and down buttons, I can use the last link and make this a bright button, and use the last link and make this a dim button. Now, we can also capture the engraving, any kind of engraving I want to put on the 6 button, and we can fill this all out. We can choose the font, the size, what's the text you want it to be, things along that nature here, and then you can actually print the form out. But we'll save this for a different thing. Now, it's also said I've got a keypad in the kitchen. So S1 is the Scene 1 button here at the top. Let me kind of zoom in on that to kind of give those that haven't really seen this keypad just yet. We have Scene 1, 2, 3, 4, and off, and then we have a bright and dim button. Now, the nice thing about this keypad is that all 7 of these buttons can actually be programmed, and there is LED tracking. So I could actually make this up and down button my all on or my all off instead of being a bright or a dim, and I can actually track the LED on that. So Scene 1, being that this is in the kitchen, I'm going to have this do the island light, and I'm going to make that a toggle button. All right, and the off, I'm going to have that be away. All right, and that's going to be activated. Scene 2, we can say, dinner time. We're having dinner. Thought I had dinner here. No, I'll go to breakfast. Okay, so I'll make a breakfast. And S3, watch TV. S4, what do we got? I really didn't think much here. I could do landscape, whatever I want to do. Actually, 4, I want to be away, so it's pretty much fall off. And then up or down, I can actually, most people do use it as the bright and dim. But in my kitchen, I actually use things a couple of different ways. And again, I can capture my engraving if I so chose, that kind of a thing. And I can say finish. And what that now all of a sudden does is that populates all of the devices in the system. It automatically has shown, the different scenes and the different devices on the left-hand side. And it's saying, hey, do I want to go and print out those engraving worksheets? So right now I'm going to say no. And it also asks me, do I want to move on to my system builder or link builder? because all I've done is said, hey, this keypad is going to transmit this scene, but I don't know what the response is going to be or what devices are going to be in that scene. So I'm just going to say done for just a moment here. And so being that I'm on the display of all devices, I'm seeing every one of the devices in the system. If I go into the rooms, I look at the kitchen, I'm only going to see the 2 devices that are in the kitchen. You know, the living room, I have 2 devices. Outside, I have 1. I can actually create, you know, so as I'm adding the devices, the different rooms and things will show up. It also starts to show me the links or my scenes. So my away scene, it shows the different buttons, the blue triangles, see who's activating those scenes. And I've already got my LEDs tracking automatically, but I don't have a device that's going to respond to anything yet. So there's a variety of different ways that we can work with that scene. One of the ways that a lot of people, I'm a list kind of guy, so I really like using what we call is our link or scene builder. Okay, and what this will do is I can look at, say, the living room light scene, the landscape scene, any one of these, and all it's doing is the living room lights is being triggered by the living room keypad, the A button, and my A button LED is going to turn on. So let's say I want to modify this. I want to actually add the device that's supposed to respond to it. So here's my controllers. This tab shows that it's the living room keypad and it's in the toggle button format. What presets or what devices do I want to have part of that? So I want to do, this is the living room light, so I want to do the living room light cams. What level do I want it to come on at? Well, being that I set this up, I'm going to put this as a relay switch, 100%. We'll go there. And the indicators, so when I push the button, what do I want the LEDs to do? So right now, as I'm setting it up, the on button is going to go off, the LED behind it, meaning, you know, whatever lights I've got set up on here, and I don't think this is a factory default because they're not even on. But that's my indicator. So now all of a sudden, when I look at this living room light scene, I can see that the A button is going to trigger the living room cans, and what LED is going to turn on to 100%. So I can do the same with the landscape lights. I can come in here and I can quickly say, I know I've set that up. I want to add my preset, my outside lights, and I do want those to come on, you know, to maybe 90%. And I can actually set my default fade rate as I choose, you know, what fade rate do I want the device to get to that lighting level. So 1.6 seconds. And my indicator is going to turn on. So we can, you know, home, the nice thing about this is that I can add multiple devices at once in this link builder. So the home scene, I want the living room cans to come on at 80%, well, 100, and then the landscape, have them come on at 100%. And maybe I only want the island lights to come on to 50%. And the indicator, I have the living room keypad. That's home. Basically going to have the on turn on, the off is going to do the opposite, and meaning it's going to turn off. A, B, C, and D, depends on what I want them to do. Now, being that we set the A button, I have to come back here. I think we're going to have a couple of those come on, but I like doing that in the device itself. So we can all of a sudden quickly build our scenes and kind of see in a list view, okay, here's my on scene. The kitchen's going to come on to 50%, the living room is at 100, and the outside lights are coming on to 100. And again, I could do the same with my away scene, my presets. I'll add it, I'll add everybody. And when I activate these, I want this to go to 0. And I'm hitting the tab button, and all of a sudden, I'm done there. So it's you know, this is a more of a link way or a list way to build a link. Now, let's say I wanted to do more of a drag and drop kind of building of a scene. So if I want to work with the done scene, I can double click on this icon and it now pulls up a graphical view that I'm going to hit the D button and I'm going to have the living room keypad LED indicator turn on. But I now want to have the island light in this scene, so I click on it on the left-hand side and I bring it over here. And what level do I want this to go to? Well, probably 0. We're done. I'll go and grab the kitchen cans, or the living room cans, and drag it over here to the bottom because this is the receive side. And I want this to go to 0 quickly. And the outside lights, I'm going to drag over as well. I want them to go to 0. But those I want to fade down in 30 minutes. So within this scene, it's now going to take 30 minutes for the outside lights to get to 0%. And the other thing I could do is I could actually add the kitchen keypad to the bottom, or I changed my mind. Kitchen keypad, I'm sorry, the living room keypad. If I drag that over here to the top, I could go back to a button and change any one of those buttons. So I might have the off button here. I'm going to reassign it to be an activate button. And I've now got that, and that's pulling up for the keypad, which I got to fix. So now I can have the off button on the kitchen keypad and the D button in the living room keypad are now going to trigger the scene. Okay? So if I'm done here, I right-click on the icon and I can say complete the edit. And if the software says, hey, you haven't programmed everybody, so do I want to program right now for expediency? I'm going to say no, and I can actually have that not show up any longer. And I can now come back and I can look at my done scene and I can see my transmitters, my receivers, and what are the indicators going to be. So that's kind of the quick and easy way to add scenes and to modify and to quickly set up a system. Now what I would really need to do is go and program this device. I am online. I can see that down here at the bottom. Okay. I can go and program this device, and it's saying, hey, you want to make changes? And the software is going to say, hey, Scott, that device has actually never been programmed. So this is the way that I can actually save a lot of time, do all my programming, set all my configurations, and go to the job site, and then put the device in setup. I tap it 5 times, and I can take the software, everything that I programmed, and download it to it once. So that's quickly, you know, a way to do that. Wall switch 1D, yeah. Oh, okay. So I do have a wall switch here. It's a relay. Let me reset this. Because I do know it's a dimmer. And it could be a switch I put in that you're playing with. Okay. Sorry, guys. I modified one of my switches. I'm programming outside light. Okay. And that's one of the things is if you add a device offline, like I did, and I made it the wrong kind versus what it is, it's going to tell me, you know, hey, you're wrong. It's a wall switch relay, not a dimmer module. So be careful when you pick what kind, if you're using a WS1D or a WS1DL, an LED device, versus each other. Now, to program a device, it does take about a minute to download to each unit. So, plan on that in your programming time when you're doing different things. Now, once we get done programming this, I'll show you how we can set some of the functions within the wall switch and some of the functions that we can set within the keypads. No questions so far? I guess I'm doing a great job. And you'll notice now that this has been programmed, the line is blue. So that means that everything is copacetic with it. It's all good to go, but these other devices need to be modified. Now, if I go into this wall switch, and I messed it up, I actually set it up as a relay switch, not a dimmer switch. So what I'll do here is we'll show you how to add a device online, and then we'll show you how to modify it. So I can, even though I'm connected, I'm adding a device. I'm going to go put that device in setup. Okay, and I can say next. And this is the way most people tend to start the program, is they go on the job site, they go to a device, put it in setup. It's actually the last time I would ever actually have to touch that device, and then learn it into my software. I think you can see it's a little bit quicker adding the devices offline, because this is going to take us another minute or so to get all this information up into it. So it's called the living room cans. It's now unit ID number 6 because it's automatically assigned the first 5. I'm going to erase the existing configuration and say next. And that's really the last time I would physically have to touch this switch again, because it now knows its network ID. It now knows that it's device number 6. I know I'm the living room. I know I'm a wall switch, a WS1D and not a relay switch. So off we go. And I could add another device if I so chose. Now, some of the settings that we can set up in the wall switch, when we single tap it, when we turn it on, if we double tap it, what level do we want it to go on to? I'd like to have mine come on to 90%. I'm going to save 10% of my energy usage. The bottom rocker, when I single tap it, I could actually have it go to, say, 20%. If I double tap it, go to 0. If you're using a front-end controller, please check this box. Report light level after the rocker switch is pressed. So if I'm using an Elan or an ELK M1 or an HAI system, if you want to check that box, because if I manually turn this light on or off, it's actually going to go out and say, hey, this is who I am and this is what level I'm at. The options, I can actually disable the dimming. I can set my default fade rate. I can also set the LED functionality. In my house, I have mine red when the load is on and blue when the load is off. And I can actually set my LED level from high to low. The switches also have an auto-off timer built into them. So my wife's closet switch automatically turns off after 5 minutes. I use the same thing in the garage because I tend to leave the garage lights on, but I can also have a function of enabling, if I double tap the switch, it disables the override. So my wife's closet does not have that feature. She's in the closet more than 5 minutes, time to get out or go turn the light on again. Now the receive components, this is where I can actually add a switch to a scene directly. So I'm probably going to want to have this part of my away scene, and I want it to go to 0. I want the living room cans. I can see what device I'm always editing by the name here at the top. I want this to be part of the home scene. I want that to come on to, say, 80%. And I can set a fade rate of 3.3. Watch TV. And I want that to go to 10. Oop, I'm going to go to 10. And I want it to get there in 30 seconds. Breakfast, I want it to be 40%. So I can add this device into up to 16 different scenes right here in its what we call receive components table or the scenes table. Now, a nice advantage is that our switches are also transmitters. So when I turn on this living room cans light manually, I could actually have it turn on the landscape light as well. So I could put in landscape, and the mode, what I would do is make this a custom button, because when I single tap it, I would send no command. So I could still come in and turn the living room lights on and off. But if I double tap it, I'm going to activate the landscape scene. And the bottom rocker, I would use the same scene. Again, I would do a custom button. And my double tap would be a deactivate. And what that means is, if I turn on my kitchen light or my living room light, being that I haven't programmed either one of these yet, if I single tap it, just this light would come on. But if I double tap the switch, this light would come on and the outside lights would come on. So that's a nice little feature we have. And we also have the capability, upon the auto off function, I can have it transmit another scene as well. So we can get into some kind of conditional stuff. Shoe sensitivity. If there's noise on the line, you might want to set your sensitivity to low. I could also test the device. I can turn it on, turn it off. So turn off, turn on. And I can do a quick communication test to it. So I can have, I'm doing a test from the computer or from the PIM to the device. So at the Powerline interface, I got 90. At the device, I got 114. So that signal is absolutely screaming. So minimum levels you want to see, I say is 20. A device will work if it has a signal strength of 8. But I like to say the minimum is 13. But 13 will get you 20, so I like to see 20 across the board. And once I get that everything set in that, I can program the device. It'll take all the settings, and I'll download those into the living room wall switch. Questions so far? Okay. I guess we're all professionals. It's a good thing. All right. So let's take a look at our 7-button keypad and some of the functions that we can set up on a keypad. The ID, network name, room name, device name, unit. I've got a notepad on every single device, so if you use one of our lighting control panel cans, you could say, this is in the kitchen, it's in the closet or something like that. If it's in the lighting control panel, it's row 3, switch 2. The options on the keypad is I can enable or disable the backlighting. What's the LED brightness going to be, high, medium, faint, or none when the device is on. The keypad transmit, this actually shows me what scenes am I going to transmit and what mode they're going to be in. And these are all filled in because we used the scene or the system builder a little bit earlier. Now the indicators, this is probably the hardest part for people to grasp within the system. So the first thing is that the island is the S1 button. Away is the off button. Scene 2, scene 3, right, scene 4, and done. So I've actually gotten both this away in both the off and that. So I'm going to change this. Oh, God, let's see, island done, away is S4. So what I like to do is just to make sure, if I'm setting up scenes and things like that, I like to clear here and then copy the links so they come in order as they were on the transmit tab. So S2 was breakfast. So let me clear these. So island, S2 is breakfast. Watch TV is S3. Away is S4. And off is done. So I now get my, what we call the stair step, to make sure that all of those LEDs will work if I push that button. Now, the thing we need to do here is when the island is turned on, what do I want the scene 2 button to do? Breakfast time. I probably want to have that turn off so that the breakfast scene is not true if I just turned on the island. Is watch TV true? No. Is away true? No. And is done true? No. So I actually want to turn those LEDs off. Now here you have a choice. Do you want the up and down buttons to illuminate when you turn on the island light? I would say yes, because I might want to brighten or dim the island light. Now further, breakfast is probably a scene. I would tend to say the island light is going to be on during the breakfast scene, so I'm going to want that LED to come on too. The watch TV scene is not true, the away scene is not true, and the done scene is not true, and I'm going to want to have the up and down on. Watch TV. You know, watch TV, and let's just say that when I'm watching TV in the kitchen, I don't want the island light on. So when I trigger the watch TV scene, by pushing the S3 button, I want the island light or the S1 LED behind it to turn off. Breakfast is no longer valid, away is no longer valid, and done is no longer valid. And again, I might want my LEDs for the up and down on. Away, obviously, the island light is not on. The breakfast scene is not true. Watch TV scene is not true, and the done scene is not true. And I really don't think I need the LEDs when I'm away. Done, island is not true, breakfast is not true, watch TV is not true, away is not true, and done, I don't need those turned on. So this is kind of the logic that we use of, you know, these are the scenes, these are the buttons, and what do I want them to react? Now the nice thing is I can also add any one of my other scenes in here, so I have good night, right? I'm not transmitting that scene from this keypad, but I'm probably doing it from somewhere else. So what do I want the LEDs to do in this situation? Well, I want S1 to turn off, and I'm using my keypad or my keyboard now by saying off. Oops. The off button, I want to go off. S2 off, S3 off, S4 off. Oops, I tapped too many times here, and I can go off. So anytime good night happens, this keypad is not going to look right, or it's all going to be turned off. Again, advanced tab, the engraving. I can actually copy my link names in here. I've actually got a function here that shows my link numbers, and I'm going to order these buttons. And what font style do I want? Comic Sans. I want them 10. And uppercase only. What's the color button going to be? I can do upper and lower, you know, and we can go from there. I can test it, and I can do my com test. So I'm going to program this device. I'm just going to say go put it in setup mode, which is the scene 1 button and the down arrow. And I'll say OK here, and it'll go and program this keypad to do what we've told it to go do. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Questions, comments so far? Everybody still happy? Everybody still awake? I haven't driven you away yet? Great. And again, we can kind of see, you know, signals are being sent here, what data is being sent down in hex. I can't read it that fast, but that's what we're showing. So again, it takes about a minute a device. So I usually, you know, try and get everything done the first time, so I don't have to go back and forth. You know, writing down the device, writing down the device, writing down the device. All right. So at this point, you know, I'm going to have my LEDs light up here as I'm, you know, turning things on and off. And the Liberman switch is listening to different things. So we've got those two devices programmed. All right. couple questions here. Can I use the PulseWorx designer if I'm using a PIM IP with some PulseWorx dimmers and HAI dimmer? Yes, you can. The thing is that the designer only pulls up PulseWorx devices, so you can still add the keypads and the scenes, but you're not going to be able to add HAI switches into that. But I could come in later and right here say, well, let me work offline here. I could say add a device, and I can go to HAI, and I could add one of their HAI dimmer switches. But, you know, personally, I don't know why you want to use HAI. Everything's built here in the States with PCS, longer warranty, more functionality, things along that nature. So there you go. Now, if I've got my file saved, I'll save my file. It'll save it in my UPV designs folder. So I'll call this the Jones. And if I want to export this to, say, an Elk M1 or an Elan G, I can say File, Export, and I can export a parsed device. Now, one of the things that we're going to do later today is show people how to use the app. And one of the things I need to do is to be connected to my PIM IP. And then I can say File, Export the file to the PIM IP. And I put in my username and password, the port I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take this file and literally download it now into the PIM IP unit to where the app can now come in and pull up the different rooms, the different devices, the different scenes that are a member of those things. So one other question that we've got here that's come up is also, can you have too many repeaters in a house? Not really. We've had a couple of homes with 2 or 3 repeaters in it. One of the things I think you really want to do is if you have more than one repeater, is on any transmitting device. So a keypad is a transmitting device. Under the Advanced tab, you want to bump the link packet transmits to 1 more than how many repeaters you have. So if I have 2 repeaters in a house, I want to at least bump it to 3. The reasoning being is that when a device transmits, it transmits in a double packet. So it says, you know, I'm done, twice. The repeater hears the first link packet and says, oh, I heard this. Let's repeat that packet. When it transmits a repeated packet, it only transmits that 1 packet. So the second repeater would only hear that 1 packet and have nothing to repeat. So if it's a 3, the first repeater hears all 3 messages and it repeats the next 2. The next repeater hears the 2 messages and repeats the last part of it. So too many repeaters in a house? I don't think so, but I really don't think you'd need more than 3 in any kind of a situation. So phase couplers is kind of what you'd most likely need in other locations within that house. So that being said, you know, lastly, I know we're right here at the, we got about 4 minutes. If I've got everything programmed, I've got 3 out of the 5 things programmed here. What I can do is I can actually do some testing. I can do a network comm test, which I can do from the PIM IP to all the devices. And I can save the file, and it'll go out and run a test to each device within your system. And shows me that the first one, it failed. There's nothing there because we never actually installed that. At the outside landscape, I got 75 and 110, 78 and 104. Those are well within tolerances. The other nice thing I can do is I can say, if I look at a scene, and this is my 7-button keypad, I can right-click to that, and I can say check comm with the receivers, so it will go out and talk to all 4 devices that I'm supposed to talk to, and give me a signal strength. And that one's going to fail. The living room keypad we never actually programmed, so that one will fail. The outside landscape lights will work, the island line will work, and the living room cans, the last one will work there as well. So 94. You know, again, we want to see 13 or higher. So now I can go back and find out kind of what's going on with the island. Actually, I didn't program that switch, so that's why it failed as well. So I can do a test there. Under tools, I can also do device-to-device comm, so I can have one device talk to another device. And if I actually had a repeater in the system, I can do a repeater comm test. But we're going to cover that one in our webinar at noon under our advanced class. So one last thing, I can do a print preview of my existing file. It puts in your name, the customer name, the network information, all the devices in the network. You know, sometimes people forget, oh, I added another switch, so you can have your counts, all the devices by device name, the room name, the type. I also get it in room order, but then I start to look at what are my keypads sending. You know, this is the living room keypad. I want it to go to the, you know, on, does home, it's activate. These are our link numbers. And then we actually start to print out what the links completely do. So home is the on button in living room keypad, turns on these devices at this level and at that speed, and this is what the LEDs do. So this actually becomes your sign-off sheet for the client. You know, here's what we discussed, here's what's programmed, sign off, thank you very much. So with that being said, I'm kind of done for the basic overview of UPStart and how we can do different things. One last question here is how do you update firmware of each switch or device? At this moment, if you need to change the firmware version, we actually have to do that at the shop. So you can actually see what firmware we have here is 5.59. On a relay switch, on a standard dimmer switch, I think our standard at this point is 5.50. So there's really not a lot of major changes that we've done to firmware in the past 2 years, 3 years. So that's really kind of where we've been at. So unless anybody's got some other questions, I'm kind of done at this point, and hopefully we'll see you here in another hour to go through some advanced setup. Thanks again for attending. We'll see you soon.